We've got our eye on politics for you tonight as the race for a U.S. Senate seat that represents Texas is heating up. So we got Senator Ted Cruz set to defend the seat that he currently holds. A little bit of history on this. Back in 2018, Senator Cruz narrowly defeated Democratic challenger Beto O'Rourke. Both candidates were only separated by a little more than 200,000 votes. But fast forward today, now two Democratic frontrunners are fighting to face off against Cruz come the November election. They include Congressman Colin Allred, whose districts do include parts of Dallas, Richardson, and Plano. The other candidate is Texas Senator Roland Gutierrez, whose districts include parts of San Antonio as well as Uvalde. He's been very vocal on gun reform following the shooting at Robb Elementary. Tonight, we're sitting down with Texas Monthly after both candidates participated in a recent debate. We've got Alex Samuels with us this evening from Texas Monthly, keeping an eye on the campaigns and also how they differ. So with that, when we're talking about the Allred and the Gutierrez campaigns, curious what you're seeing as far as the strategies you've seen that each campaign is using right now when it comes to maximizing their message, obviously, and the amount of time they've spent campaigning.
Yeah, so because he's already working in D.C. as a congressman, I think that gives Allred a lot of ties to existing D.C.-based groups, PACs, and foundations that none of the other candidates will likely see. Allred is doing some traveling in the state ahead of the primaries, but his campaign admits that he hasn't logged as many stops in the state as State Senator Roland Gutierrez. So from my perspective, and from that of many voters I spoke with for the piece I did on the Senate race, one takeaway was that Allred is running more of a D.C.-based campaign, while Gutierrez is betting more on persistence through an in-person campaign fed by broad, small donor support. I will say, you know, there's no right or wrong way to campaign as a statewide Democrat here in Texas necessarily. And Gutierrez does seem to have some advantages when it comes to traveling the state because he's based here full time, whereas Allred has to split his time between here and D.C. Another point we made in the piece is that Allred's tack, you know, even if it is the case that he's missing in Texas, it's not really hurting him. You know, he's the top Democratic fundraiser in the state. Polls give him a significant edge over all of his opponents. And the money he's raised so far has allowed him to go on air and with TV ads in Dallas and Houston, among many other things.
Yeah, isn't it so interesting, though? I think first time that I think I've seen it, such diverse campaigns. I mean, literally two completely different strategies, right? Let's talk about debates in the primary for a second. You all at Texas Monthly saw a very different strategy between the two frontrunners in the Democratic Party. Tell us a little bit more about why this past Sunday's debate is going to stand out from the rest.
Yeah, so earlier this month, Senator Gutierrez announced that he would attend 5 Democratic primary debates between now and primary day, which is March 5th. Allred, meanwhile, said he would only attend 1 debate, and that debate happened this past Sunday, and it was hosted by the Texas AFL-CIO. We did ask, and an Allred staffer declined to tell us why he's only participating in 1 non-televised debate, but it was interesting to me as a journalist that the congressman seemingly didn't want to participate in more unscripted forums that will get him in front of voters. But because Sunday's debate was the only one that will feature both leading candidates, it was really interesting to see, like we talked about, that contrast in the two's campaigns. So the border and immigration in particular were a hot topic of discussion, especially since Allred recently joined Republicans and a handful of U.S. House Democrats in supporting a resolution that said President Biden's, quote, open border policies have created a, quote, national security and public safety crisis along the southwest border. So Allred has defended this vote, but during Sunday's debate, Gutierrez suggested that Allred was throwing their party's president under the bus for political expediency.
So as you point out in the article as well, no member of the Democratic Party, as we all know, has won a statewide election. This goes way back, 1994. Been a while, been a minute. Clearly the party's hoping for a little bit of a different outcome this time, which is Captain Obvious saying that. So which of the candidates, in your estimation, when you look at the playing field right now, have the best chance at maybe coming out on top between the two front runners in the race at the moment?
That's a great question. And, a big point we made in the story is that even if Allred isn't logging as many miles in Texas as Gutierrez, it's not necessarily hurting him among voters here. One of the more recent polls of the race was from Emerson College, and they showed Allred netting 29% support among Texas's Democratic primary voters, compared with just 7% support for Gutierrez. And in a recent email to supporters, too, Allred announced that he had brought in a whopping $4.8 million in the last quarter of 2023. Gutierrez has until the end of the month to report his fourth quarter fundraising numbers to the FEC, so we should be getting those soon. But his campaign implied in a statement to Texas Monthly that his haul would be somewhat smaller. I will note, since there are so many Democratic candidates in the race, it is somewhat unlikely that Allred hits the 50% threshold needed to avoid a primary runoff. Even if it does get to that point, though, polls show Allred with a significant polling advantage over Gutierrez if the two were to go head-to-head.
Well, think about it. For those of us who embrace watching the political cycles unfold, we've got not only that, but, oh, by the way, we've got a presidential campaign happening this year as well. So we're going to be busy.
Lots to do, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be pretty darn busy the next few months. Alex, thank you so much for joining us. We sure do appreciate the insight. It's great. You can read more, by the way, about the campaigns and Alex's article, highly suggested, online at texasmonthly.com. You can also find this interview and our past interviews with CBS Texas, and you'll find that on the website, cbstexas.com. Alex, thanks again. We'll be back in just a moment.